Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about open triads. First off, download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. It contains everything that I'm talking about in this lesson, all the charts and diagrams, as well as much more, so it'll be really useful to you. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download that. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it may not be available as you're watching this lesson. And if it's not available yet, it'll say coming soon. And if you'd like to get notified when it is available, you can sign up for our mailing list and we'll send you a notification for when it is available and let you download it. And also, if you're signed up for our mailing list, you'll receive all updated versions as well. But don't worry, you don't need the e-guide to follow along with this lesson because all the charts and diagrams will be on the screen. And also, we add at least one new lesson every day, so be sure to subscribe. This is part 2.14 from our series Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So in the last lessons, we were talking about chord progressions and harmonized major scale. And this lesson, I want to shift gears a little bit and go back to talk about triads. And this is something I didn't talk about when I first talked about triads because I think it's confusing if you look at it too early. But I think we're at a place now where we can touch on it, and I think it's important to learn and at least have the basic knowledge of it. So you may remember when I was talking about the triads we were looking at before that I called them close position triads. And close position just means that all the intervals are as close together as possible and that they span less than one octave. For example, a major triad in close position was a root 3-5 like what's on your screen. And from this root to this 5 is a perfect fifth apart. So if we put it on one string, if we move this 5 up to a unison note on one string, it would be right here. So this distance from this root to this 5 is less than an octave because an octave would be up here. So from here to here is an octave. From here to here is a perfect fifth. So this triad in close position is less than an octave span. And all these intervals are as close as possible together. And that's why you end up with chord shapes that end up on 3 adjacent strings because that's the easiest way to hold these chords. Some of them you have options for them not being on 3 adjacent strings, but they turn into really big stretches. So the most common way to play them is 3 adjacent strings. And with the close position triads, to get the intervals as close as possible, root position was root 3-5, first inversion was 3-5 root, and second inversion was 5 root 3. That's the order you would put them in to get them as close as possible. But there's another type of triad which is called an open triad. And an open triad spans more than one octave. And because it spans more than one octave, you always skip at least one string when you're fretting them. They don't land on 3 adjacent strings like these close triads. And there's multiple options for fingering them. I'm going to go over a few of them, but some of the stretches get pretty big if you try to reach them. So there's some that are pretty comfortable to reach and others that are more difficult to reach. But since you're skipping at least one string, you have more options for fretting them. And the reason you would use open triads is just because they have a different sound. They sound completely different because the intervals are farther apart, so it creates a more open sound. It creates bigger interval distances, which just sounds different than a close position triad. And after this lesson, I recommend trying them out and seeing how they sound different than the close position triads. And they just have a really nice sound. So they can just be used in different musical situations to get different sounds. And the way you create an open triad is to move the middle note either up an octave or down an octave. So for example, if we're looking at this close triad right here, which is in root position on the first, second, and third strings, we would take this middle note, which is the major third, and the only option we have on the first, second, and third strings is to bring it down an octave. We can't bring it up. We don't have the space to do that. So if we take this 3 and move it down an octave, we would end up with this shape. So this is an open triad. The distance between the intervals from the lowest to the highest interval is over an octave. The distance from this major third to this perfect fifth is over an octave apart. So this is an open triad. And you can see we're skipping the second string. Or we moved it to this octave. We could also move it to the same note on a different string. So we go into a unison note from where we are right now, which is right here. But from where we started, which was right here, it's still an octave lower. It's just this is a unison note to the one we started with when we first moved the note. So that's another option for an open triad. And it's the exact same as what I just showed you. It's just fretted different. So now you have two skip strings. But still the distance from this major third to this perfect fifth is still the same distance apart. And it's still over an octave. Or another option we have for this triad to make it open is to go back to the first one we had when we moved the major third to here. And we can take now this middle note of which is a root in this chord, and move it to its unison note. And that would give you this shape. And still it's the exact same voicing, it's just fretted different. Since on the guitar you have unison notes, you have multiple ways for fretting chords. So the options are for taking this close position triad and making it open, you have three somewhat easy to fret fingerings. And the first one you could do is this one. The next one you could do is this one. And the next one you could do is this one. But they're all the same voicing, they're all the same chord. It's just that we're moving around unison notes, but it ends up being the same thing. It's still a 3 root 5 and still the same distance between the intervals. It's just we've used unison notes to fret them different. So that's something about open triads, is that you have a lot more options for fretting the chord. And close position triads, there's really one good option, and then some of them have other options, but they're pretty difficult to grab. But open triads are in general more difficult to grab than close position triads, since there's a bigger span and since you're skipping a string. They're actually quite a bit more difficult to grab than a close position triad. So that's what an open triad is. I just demonstrated starting with that first close position triad and showing you how to move the notes around. I'm not going to go through all the other positions just because it's the exact same concept, and I don't want to make this a really long video just to show that. And all these diagrams are in the e-guide, so you can download that and use it for a reference. But if you use the system I showed you, you're going to be able to find them on your own. And you can just start with any close position triad and try to move the middle note around either down an octave or up an octave and come up with an open triad and see what it sounds like. But again, look in the e-guide, you'll be able to see the most common ones and ones that you can learn right away and start using. So go ahead and move on to the next lesson, where we're going to go back to talking about the harmonized major scale, and I'm going to show you how to harmonize a major scale using triad shapes, close and open triad shapes. So that'll be a really useful lesson for you. And like I said, download the e-guide, all these diagrams are in there, and be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.